Okay, so let's start with a super quick revision of offences and penalties and ethical aspects under GST, which is the newly introduced topic. So now here in this chapter, we are going to study about penalties, mainly under section number 122. Starting with that, section number 1, we are going to study mainly penalties as well as offences, punishments, imprisonments, etc., which we are going to study further in under section number 132, etc. Let's start with the first one, that is section number 122.1. 122.1 is the penalty which is levied on every taxable person who is involved in any one of these 21 offences listed below. Okay, so if there is a taxable person involved in any of the 21 offences, then he will be liable for a penalty. Okay, how much is the amount of penalty under CGST alone? Okay, 10,000 rupees or the amount of tax involved, whichever is higher. Okay, 10,000 or the amount of tax involved, whichever is higher. If it goes under IGST, double, 20,000 or the amount of tax involved, whichever is higher. Okay, if we are talking about CGST, whatever amount of penalty we have determined here, an equivalent amount under SGST or UTGST will also become applicable. Okay, these 21 offences are given here. We have just classified it on the basis of different types of offences. So the most crucial one to be remembered here is 122.1 clause 1, where we have done any supply. Okay, supply of goods or services or both is done, but this is done without invoice. Okay, or second clause is where you have issued an invoice, bogus invoice, fake invoice. You have issued an invoice, but there is actually no supply of goods or services or both. Okay, and such other offences are covered here. Offences relating to tax evasion, offences relating to TDS, TCS, offences related to ITC. In that, one more clause that I am telling you to remember, 122.17. Okay, where any particular person takes ITC or any particular person utilizes or avails the ITC without actually receiving any inward supply. Means there was no receipt of goods, there was no receipt of services, but still that person, on the basis of maybe fake invoice, that person has utilized and availed the ITC. So in that case also he is covered under those 21 offences, therefore liable under section 122.1. Then there are offences relating to fraudulent refund, offences relating to falsification of records, non-maintaining the proper records, giving false information during registration, offences relating to transportation of goods without proper documents, without proper supporting documents, and such other offences. Okay, out of these 21 offences, at least clause 1, clause 2 and clause 7, please remember that. Anyway, if you are falling under these 21 offences, the amount of penalty is equal to 10,000 or the amount of tax involved, whichever is higher. Okay, then going on to the second one, that is section number 122.1a. 122.1a talks about penalty on any person, not necessarily a taxable, registered, etc. No, it can be a penalty on any particular person who retains the benefit out of these offences. Means any of these offences are done and he is such a person who is getting the benefit out of such offence. Okay, that is under clause A if the offence was done, supply without invoice, or clause 2, that is fake invoices without any supply, or clause 7, that is ITC availed fraudulently, or clause number 9, that is about ISD, wrongful distribution of credit via ISD. If any of these offences were done and if he has taken some benefit out of it, then he will be liable to a penalty of 100% of the tax which was involved there. Okay, then there was a new section that was inserted here, that is section number 122.1b, which imposes a penalty on the e-commerce operator. That is, if e-commerce operator does something which he was not permitted to do, if he allows some supply through it by any person who was not allowed to supply, through ECO, or if the ECO was supposed to file that GSTR 8 which we had studied in the amendments. Okay, if he has not done that, then ECO will be liable. Okay, normal 10,000 or 100% of the tax, whichever is higher. 100%, 10,000 CGST, IGST 20,000, or the amount of tax involved, whichever is higher. Yes, then the next fourth one is section number 122. So 122 is applicable on a registered person, only on a registered person, not a person who is liable to get registered. So if any particular person has supplied any goods or services and such person is involved in tax not paid, tax short paid, erroneous refund, ITC wrongfully availed or ITC wrongfully utilized, then in that case that person will be liable for penalty. Okay, if it was done for reasons other than fraud, means for any reasons other than the reason of fraud, section 73 types, okay, then in that case 10,000 or 10% of the tax involved, whichever is higher, will be the amount of penalty. IGST I am not telling, you can understand now. And if it was for the reasons of fraud, then 10,000 or 100% of the tax, whichever is higher. Okay, so where it was lenient, then 10% of the tax. When it was fraud case, 10,000 or 100% of the tax, whichever is higher. Right? And the last one, that is section 122(3), which is applicable for any person. So if there is any particular person who is helping the other person to do some offense, or who was summoned by the officer but he failed to appear before the officers, etc., then he will be liable for a penalty up to 25,000 in each CGST, SGST, or in case of IGST it will be 50,000. Okay, 2 points to be remembered here. First point, that is aids or abets any of the 21 offences, that whatever offences we studied above, this person has helped. Example, a tax consultant who has helped. Okay, or if someone was called to appear before the officer but that person did not appear in for summons, then he will be liable under 122(3). Penalty is equal to penalty up to rupees 25,000. Okay, similarly, section number 124, where any particular person was required to furnish some information or furnish a return under section 151, and if he either does not furnishes it without any reasonable cause or purposely furnishes some wrong information, then in that case, if he has done it for the first time, means a first warning, then in that case fine up to 10,000 can become applicable, and even after giving warning, if he is continuing that offense, then 100 rupees per day or 25,000, whichever is lower, will be the amount of further fine that will be applicable on such a person. Then going on to the next section, that is section number 125. If there is any such contravention which has been missed out under any of the above section, then a general penalty up to rupees 25,000 can be levied depending upon the gravity of that particular contravention. But then they are telling that, whenever there is a up to penalty, that is up to 25,000, up to this amount, means there is no fixed percentage or there is no fixed amount, then in such cases the proper officer has the right to consider the gravity of the offense, and then it can decide what amount of penalty should be imposed. And if that person has voluntarily disclosed certain information, then we should definitely consider to reduce his amount of penalty. No penalty can be imposed without giving reasonable opportunity of being heard, and whatever order, and yes, show cause notice has to be given, and in that, okay, the nature of offense, under which law this has been done, everything should be specified properly. Okay, and if there is any minor breach of tax regulation, or if there is such mistake which is rectifiable, means easily rectifiable, it is apparent from record, then for such cases, okay, minor breach means if the tax amount involved is less than 5,000, or if there is any such other mistake which is rectifiable, easily rectifiable, for that they are telling that please don't impose any amount of penalty, because this will create unnecessary hardship for that particular person. Okay, section 127 says that if there is any of these sections, section 62, 63, 64, 73, 74, 129, 130, okay, for this, if the penalty is not covered, okay, under those respective sections, penalty we are talking, okay, if the penalty is not covered, then the proper officer has the right to impose the penalty even if it is not covered in those respective sections. Yes, but only after giving a reasonable opportunity of being heard. And section 128 gives the powers to the government to waive off partly or waive off in full any amount of penalty that has been levied. Are you clear till here? Okay, now moving on to the important sections. 3 important sections we are going to do together: 129, 130 and 132. Okay, 129 talks about 2 cases mainly, that is detention and seizure. Okay, not confiscation. Confiscation is going to come in section number 130. Okay, here we are going to study about section number 129, which talks about detaining some goods, detaining the vehicle, conveyances, and seizing it. Okay, detaining basically means not giving the access to the owner. Okay, and seizing it means taking the possession of the same. Okay, now here they are telling that if any particular person is transporting any goods, okay, without cover of proper documents, or if any particular person is storing any goods in contravention of the provisions of the GST law, then the officer can intercept, okay, any particular proper officer can intercept, he can stop that particular vehicle. Okay, I'm telling you the entire section, just try to understand. He can stop that particular vehicle, then he will tell that owner of that vehicle to show the documents. Okay, if he is able to show, well and good, we will release that. Okay, if he is not able to show, then we will tell him that please take the vehicle on the side of the road, we need to do an inspection. Okay, for that inspection order will be passed, inspection will be conducted, physical inspection of that goods, vehicle, etc. will be conducted within a time period of 3 days. Okay, within 3 days it will be conducted, and the report of the same will be uploaded on the common portal. Okay, as soon as the report is uploaded on the common portal, after that we can pass an order for detention or seizure. See, if nothing is found in physical verification, then we will allow them to go. But if something fishy is found, then we will pass an order for detention and seizure. Okay, means goods as well as the conveyance, good as well as the truck, etc. can be detained. Okay, now if the owner says that, okay, I will come forward and I will pay the penalty, but please release my goods and my conveyance. Okay, then in that case, this is the amount of penalty that is applicable. Okay, if he comes forward for paying the amount of penalty. Okay, if the goods were taxable goods in that vehicle, if the goods were taxable goods, penalty is equal to 200% of the tax payable, means CGST 200%, SGST 200%. Okay, and if the goods were exempted goods, then you cannot give a tax based penalty. So penalty amount is equal to 2% of the value of those exempted goods, or 25,000, whichever is lower. If you pay this much amount of penalty under section 129, then your goods as well as your conveyance will be released. Okay, but what if the owner does not come forward? Then the amount of a penalty applicable here is, in case of taxable goods, 200% remaining the same, or 50% of value of goods, whichever is higher. 50% of value of goods or 200% of the tax payable, whichever is higher. And if it is exempted goods, then it was 2%, right? Instead of 2%, now they will make it as 5% because the owner is not coming forward. So 5% of the value of goods, or 25,000, whichever is lower. If owner does not come forward, then maybe some other person can pay this amount of penalty and he can get the goods and the conveyance released. Okay, now there can be a possibility that owner of the goods is not coming forward. Okay, if owner of the goods is not coming forward, but the owner of the conveyance says that, sir, at least release my vehicle. Okay, sir, at least release my vehicle. Then in such a case, the transporter can get the conveyance released by paying the above penalty, that is when the owner does not come forward, that penalty, or 1 lakh, whichever is less. This much amount of penalty he can pay, and he can at least get his conveyance released. Okay, goods will still be there with the department, but he can get his conveyance released. Are you clear with this? Okay, now as soon as physical verification was completed and the order of detention was passed, from that day, within 7 days, a notice specifying the amount of penalty will be issued to the owner of the goods. Okay, once he receives that notice, within 7 days, proper officer will pass the final order of the penalty. Okay, then once he receives the final order copy, from that day, within 15 days, he will be liable to pay the amount of penalty. If he does not pay, then we will sell the goods and we will realize the penalty amount due from it. And if suppose the goods are hazardous goods or perishable goods, then the officer need not even wait for 15 days and he can sell the goods and realize the amount of penalty. Are you clear with this? Yes. Okay, and suppose if there are some minor mistakes, okay, example, in e-way bill, maybe the, some digits of vehicle number is wrong. Okay, maybe the pin code is mentioned correctly, but the address of consignor consignee is correct. 1 or 2 digits in HSN is mentioned wrongly, but the rate of tax is charged correctly. For these mistakes, now this is also a mistake. This is also contravention of law. But for this, please don't do detention or seizure. Instead, you can just levy a penalty of 500 for these small mistakes. Okay, then going on to the next section, that is section number 130, which talks about confiscation of goods. Now, in the previous section, we just studied about detention and seizure. Okay, here we are talking about confiscation. If any of the 5 cases have happened, okay, if any of the 5 cases have happened, then the department has the right to confiscate your goods. Okay, now confiscation is not temporary. Okay, confiscation is permanent. That is, your goods will go to the government. Government can sell it, do anything with it, and the money will stay with the government only. Okay, so now if any particular person is supplying any goods or receiving any goods in contravention of the law, or if some person is there who is not accounting the transaction in its books of accounts and it is evading the tax, or if it is doing some supply without actually applying for registration, or if he is doing any other contravention under the law for evading the tax, or if that person is using some conveyance, okay, for carriage or for transportation of goods from one place to another in contravention of the law, then the conveyance, okay, in all the above cases the goods can be seized, and in the last case even the conveyance of that particular person can be confiscated. But if the owner of the conveyance proves that, sir, this was done without my knowledge, then it can be released. Okay, otherwise the goods and conveyance will be liable for confiscation. Now he will be liable for penalty under section 122, that is a different thing. Okay, that is for doing something wrong. Plus his goods or conveyance will also be liable for confiscation, but we will give him an option that if you pay us some redemption fine, okay, if you pay us some redemption fine which will be equal to market value of the goods, market value, not the cost price, market value of the goods confiscated minus the tax payable thereon. If you pay this much amount as redemption fine, you can take your goods, you can give us the fine, everything is over. Okay, now so on these goods he has to pay the tax, on that he has to pay the interest, plus if he pays plus penalty will be paid under section 122, plus if he pays this redemption fine, then we can release his confiscated goods. Okay, what was the amount of redemption fine? Market value of the goods minus the tax payable thereon, because anyway he is now going to pay the tax separately. Okay, but they are telling this is the maximum amount. Maximum is this much amount of redemption fine that can be paid, but at least how much should be recovered? They are telling this penalty plus redemption fine, at least the amount of tax payable, at least this much should be recovered from him in the form of penalty and redemption fine. Okay, this is for the goods. If they want to get their goods, then this much amount should be recovered. If the owner of the vehicle wants his conveyance, then he has to pay 100% of the tax on those goods. Pay this much amount as redemption fine, take your conveyance. Okay, but for this, reasonable opportunity of being heard before doing all these things, reasonable opportunity of being heard should be given. Okay, once the goods are confiscated, now it belongs to the government. Government can sell it off. Okay, government will wait for a time period of 3 months. It will give 3 months time period to the owner of the goods to pay the redemption fine. If he is not paying, the government can sell it off after a period of 3 months. Okay, and whatever confiscation penalty etc is going, that will not interfere with any other proceedings. Okay, suppose if any other appeal is going on, cancellation of registration, that will be separate, and this confiscation and penalty will be altogether separate. Are you clear till here? Okay, going on to the most important section of the chapter, that is section number 132. 132 talks about punishment for certain offences. Now here they are telling punishment. 122 we studied was about penalty. Now in 132 they are telling that if you are involved in any of these things, means you have done an offence. Okay, that is supply without invoice, okay, or issue of fake invoice, then wrongful, bogus, this is, second one is bogus, then fraudulent or wrongful availment of ITC, tax collected but not paid beyond 3 months. Okay, first 4 names you have to remember also compulsorily, A, B, C, D. Then tax evasion or fraudulent refund. Then if you are furnishing any false information or records with an intention to evade the tax. If you are dealing in such goods which are liable to confiscation. If you are providing any services which is in contravention, or if you are helping to do any of the above offences, then in that case you are actually doing an offence under section 132. And if you are doing an offence under section 132, means you are punishable with imprisonment and fine, or imprisonment or fine, but imprisonment fine will become applicable on you. Okay, now how to simplify this? If you are involved in clause F, okay, if you are involved in clause F, that is falsification, then they are telling that imprisonment up to 6 months will be applicable. Imprisonment or fine or both will be applicable. Okay, only for this one. Only for this one we studied till now. Okay, then they are telling for bogus bill, that is 132(1)(b). Okay, for 132(1)(b), if the amount involved in that bogus bill is more than 1 crore but less than or equal to 2 crore, then imprisonment minimum 6 months, maximum 1 year, and fine plus fine will be applicable. Okay, same way in bogus bill, if amount involved is more than 2 crore but less than or equal to 5 crore, then 6 months to 3 years will be applicable. Okay, in bogus bill, if amount involved is more than 5 crore, then minimum 6 months to maximum 5 years imprisonment and fine. Okay, and fine will be applicable. This I told you for bogus bill till now. Okay, so can we say clause F is over? Bogus bill is over. Ma'am, what about others? For others, this point is applicable. Okay, for others, this common point is applicable. That is where you have to check amount involved is more than 2 crore or more than 5 crore, and depending upon that the same imprisonment will be applicable. So additionally for bogus bill, even if the amount involved, only for bogus, if the amount involved is more than 1 crore, then also imprisonment provision becomes applicable. For others, imprisonment will become applicable only if the amount involved is more than 2 crores. Are you clear with this? And suppose if you are repeating that particular offense, then 6 months to 5 years. 6 months to 5 years is and plus fine. This is the amount of imprisonment and fine that is applicable on you. Okay, only in case of falsification of records it is or. Okay, in all the other cases it is and fine. Are you clear with this? Okay, now whatever offenses we have studied above, A, B, C, D till L it was going. Okay, you have to classify these offenses in two parts, whether it is cognizable and non-bailable or whether it is non-cognizable and bailable. Okay, non-cognizable and bailable. Bailable means that person can be released on bail, and non-cognizable means that person cannot be arrested without arrest warrant. Okay. And in case of non-bailable means it is a serious offense, that person cannot be released on bail, and if you want to do that arrest can be done without an arrest warrant. Okay, it can be done without an arrest warrant. So this is a serious kind of an offense, and this is comparatively less serious. This we have studied in previous chapters also. So they are telling that for clause A, B, C, D, that is bogus supply, bogus bill, fraudulent ITC, and tax collected but not paid beyond 3 months. For the first 4 offenses, if the amount involved is more than 5 crore, okay, this one, everyone here, for this first 4, if the amount involved is more than 5 crore, then it is serious, means it is non-bailable and it is cognizable. For all the others, that is here if the amount is less than or equal to 5 crore, and for all the others, it is considered as non-cognizable and bailable. Are you clear with this? Yes. Okay. Then section number 133, one time read section. 133 talks about what? It talks about liability of officers and certain other persons. Liability of officers and certain other persons. Now, if there is any person from the department, or if there is any person from outside the department who has access to the common portal, who has access to the information that has been submitted by any taxpayer, and if that person willfully discloses any information which he is not required to do, okay, which he is not required to do, if he does that, then in that case he will be liable for imprisonment up to 6 months or fine up to 25,000 or both. But if he was required to disclose under law, then obviously he will not be liable. Okay, then section number 134 talks about cognizance of offense, that is who will take the note of the offense. So this note of the offense, any offense done under GST, no court, okay, no court can take cognizance of that offense unless they take the prior sanction of the commissioner and magistrate, at least of first class level. Okay, at least of first class level, that person can try the offense under GST. Okay, cognizance means taking note. Cognizance means taking note, just like we give FIR na, before we note the FIR na. So before instituting any proceedings, etc. Same way under GST also, before starting with any proceedings, we should go to the court. The proper officer will go to the court and give a note of that particular offense. So that can be done only after taking the prior sanction of the commissioner, and no one will write this complaint except any person of at least the level of magistrate of first class. Okay, and normally for any offense under GST, it is assumed that the person who is found guilty is a person of culpable mental state. Culpable mental state means his intention was to do the default, and the burden of proof is on that guilty person that he did not have the intention of doing the fraud. Then section number 136, which simply says that if you were anytime called for summon before any officer and you went for that summon, and if you gave any statement and you signed on any particular paper, means that can be used as evidence under the before the court of law. Okay. Then section number 137 talks about offences by companies. I am taking this in a quicker manner because these are one-time read sections. Okay. Section number 137 talks about offences by companies. If there are any offences under section 132 which is done by any company, then who will be liable for the punishment? Okay, directors, managers, secretary who is found guilty of that offense will be liable for that punishment. Similarly, in case of firm, the partners will be liable. In case of HUF, family members will be liable. In case of AOP, members of that AOP will be liable. But if they prove that they were not aware about this offense, or if they prove that they were unaware about this offense, or they were not involved in that offense, or they had exercised due diligence to prevent this offense, then in that case, they will not be liable for such offense. Are you clear till there? Yes. Then going on to the next section, important section, that is section number 138. Section 138 read with rule number 162, which talks about compounding of offences. Okay, now we had already studied in section number 132 that offences were there and the person will be liable for imprisonment and fine, or imprisonment or fine, or both, etc. Now this section 138 gives an option to that guilty person that you can go and make an application to the commissioner and request the commissioner to do some compounding of offences. Means you pay the tax, you pay the interest, you pay the penalty. This you have to pay in full. Okay, but once you pay this, after this, if you pay some compounding amount, then we can reduce. Okay, we can reduce your imprisonment, we can reduce your fine. It can be made zero also. Okay, so that person, after making tax payment, after making penalty payment, after making interest payment, that person can go and make an application to the commissioner that, sir, please, I am ready to disclose all the facts, sir, I am ready to give you all the necessary information, sir, I request you to please do the compounding of my offences, I don't want to go to the jail. Okay, so then in that case, once the application reaches the commissioner will give a decision within 90 days that whether compounding is allowed or compounding is not allowed. If it says that compounding is not allowed, then ROBH should be given, and if it says that okay, compounding is allowed, then in such a case it will have to pay. Then in that case, the commissioner will issue a compounding amount order. Okay, compounding amount order that please pay so and so amount of compounding and we will compound your offenses. Okay, now in that case, how much will be the compounding amount? Okay, tax, interest, penalty, anyway you have to pay. Along with that, if you pay some compounding amount which will be in the range of 25% of the tax to 100% of the tax. Okay, 25% of the tax to 100% of the tax. If you pay between this amount, okay, this amount will be decided by the commissioner, then in that case your offences will be compounded. Okay, your punishment, imprisonment, fine, etc. will be compounded. Now there was an amendment in this and they have been even more specific. Now they are telling that if we have done any offense of clause A, that is supply without invoice, clause C was what was clause number C? That was talking about fraudulent availment of ITC. Clause D, that is tax collected but not paid to government, tax collected but not paid to the government up to beyond 3 months. And clause E that we had studied in that yellow table was about a tax evasion or fraudulent refund. Okay, so if it is covered under any of these, okay, if it is covered under any of these, and if the amount involved is more than 5 crore, if the amount involved is more than 5 crore, then in that case your range will be 50% to 75%. Okay, that will be decided by the commissioner. And if the amount involved is more than 2 crore but less than or equal to 5 crore, then your range will be 40% to 60%. Earlier they had just given this 25 to 100%. Now they have been even more specific. Okay, and if, did you see clause B is missing here? I will tell you why. Okay, then if you go for any other offenses, okay, any other offenses, you can just combine all these things. If you go for any other offenses, then the compounding amount is equal to 25% of the tax. Are you clear till here? Okay. So this is the amount of compounding which will be done by the commissioner, and if you pay this much amount, okay, this range will be decided obviously by the commissioner. If you pay this much amount, then in that case, no need to go for imprisonment, or your imprisonment and fine will be reduced there. Okay, but there are three types of offenses which cannot be compounded. First one, all the offenses under section 132(1) if you have been allowed compounding once. Okay, if compounding was done at least once for any of these offenses, then second time compounding is not allowed because you are already held guilty. Okay, next, if you have committed offense of 132(1)(b), that is bogus bills, bogus invoices, then even if this is your first time, you cannot go for compounding because this is a real serious offense. That's why clause B was missing below in the compounding table, because this offense cannot be compounded at all. Or if you have been convicted for any offense under this act by a court, if court has already convicted you for any particular offense, means now you are such a person who is really guilty, for whom the court has given some punishment. And in that case, why to go for compounding? You are anyway used to doing all such offenses. So in these cases, compounding is totally not allowed. For other cases, compounding ranges 25% to 100%, and then specifically they have given us below also. Are you clear till here? Okay, and one more point that was inserted here was, if suppose you are if you have gone for, like, suppose if the offense was committed for multiple offenses, and if you go for compounding, okay, let's say if you go for this one and if you go for this one also, then the higher one will be applicable, that is 50% to 75% will be applicable, that is mentioned here. Okay, if you pay this compounding amount, then they say that all the criminal proceedings against you, or all the proceedings against you will be totally abated. It will be dropped because you have paid the compounding amount. But later, if the commissioner comes to know that you did a fraud with the department to obtain this compounding, then they will again start the criminal procedures against you. Are you understanding this? Yes. And this circular, you can just do it once. This was talking about section 73, 74, when will it apply, and penalty under section 122, when will it apply, and offenses under section 132, when will it apply. Okay, so this was a circular which was given, just a clarification, nothing new. Okay, in short, if I want to tell you, suppose if there is any particular person, okay, let's say A has issued a fake invoice to B. Okay, there was no supply, but A has issued a fake invoice to B. Okay, since there is no supply, then it is not considered as a supply as per section number 7. If it is not considered as a supply, then there is no tax payable on that. If there is no tax payable, then we cannot call it as a case of non-payment of tax. Okay, so section 73, 74 cannot come up here in picture. If section 73, 74 cannot come up here in picture, then, but still, can we say A will be liable for issuing fake invoices, bogus invoices under section 122, 1.2, and also it will be liable for offense under section 132 also. Okay, that is given here. Okay, now let's say if there is a particular fake invoice, okay, if let's say there is a fake invoice issued by A to B, okay, and there is no supply, okay, and then B issues it further to C, B issues an invoice further to C, and this is an actual supply, okay, and B avails the ITC which it had got from A. Now, can we say, first of all, here, since B has done a supply, so B is liable to pay the tax. Okay, and B, while paying this particular tax, it must have availed the ITC which it had got from A. So, can we say this is fraudulent availment of ITC? So, here can we say section 73 and 74 will become applicable on B, because he has done fraudulent utilization of ITC in case of a supply. Okay, so 73, 74 will become applicable. If 73, 74 becomes applicable, then no other penalty sections can become applicable. We had studied this in section 73 and 74. Did you understand what happened for B? Okay, in the earlier one, why 73-74 was not applicable on A? Because this was not at all considered as a supply, because there was no supply of goods and services. But in B and C, I had told you that there is a supply of goods and services. If there is a supply, then section 7 is applicable. If section 7 is applicable, means there has to be a tax liability. For paying this tax liability, B utilized the input tax credit which it had got from A. So there is fraudulent utilization of ITC, therefore 73-74 applicable. And if 73-74 penal action is applicable, then no other penalty can be imposed. Right? Okay. Then after that, one more case that they are telling us here is, which was this case. A gave an invoice to B, okay, without any supply. B avails the ITC and B issues it to C without any supply. Then in this case, can we say there cannot be any 73 and 74 applicable in such cases? Right? Because there is no supply at all. Now, will there be any liability on A? Yes, there will be a liability on A because A issued fake invoices under 122(1)(2). Okay. Will there be any liability on B? Yes, B fraudulently availed ITC. So, can we say there will be a penalty under section 122(1)(7)? 73-74 is not applicable, so 122 will be applicable. Are you understanding this? Yes. Okay. And obviously, section 132 will anyway also become applicable. Are you clear with this? Yes. And then going on to the last part of the chapter, that is ethics, which I have covered separately in a different lecture on ethics. I hope you are very, very clear till here. Yes, the most important sections, section 122. If you want, you can just write it here. I'll write it here. Section number 122. Section number 125, general penalty. Okay, then section 129, detention, seizure. Section 130, confiscation. Section 132, offences, super duper important, you can expect a question. And section number 138, which talks about compounding. Okay, these 6 sections you have to compulsorily do from the chapter. Please do not skip it. Yes, okay.